Paul Nuttall, Deputy Leader of UKIP and MEP for the northwest of England. Obviously, fun and games in Greece. Your speech yesterday in Parliament on the 7th of July was more than strident, quite bracing concerning the Latvian EU presidency, in which you seem to kind of blame the Latvian EU presidency and therefore, I suppose, the EU in its singularity for the Greek crisis. Is this the case?
Well, what I said about the Latvian presidency is that they've done nothing. If you look at what's happened in the past 6 months under their tenure, we have the crisis in the Mediterranean. We still have the problems in Ukraine, which seem to be escalating, and Putin is running rings around the European Union. And of course, we've got Greece, who seem to be on the verge of leaving the euro. And I did mention that at least Nero fiddles while Rome burnt. The Latvians seem to have done nothing, and if there was another 6 months of the Latvians in control, then the whole EU may as well fall to bits.
Enjoyable as that may be to you, do you genuinely think, therefore, that it is the EU's fault what's happening in Greece? Are you blaming nothing but the EU? Do you not believe there are other factors that have been brought to bear on this situation? And furthermore, Paul, if Greece was to leave the EU, do you believe that would be a signpost that the UK would follow suit?
Well, firstly, I think the Greeks have got a fair few problems of their own. They have the issues about retirement age, and let's be honest about this. They haven't been sensible over the years how they've spent their money. But equally, these problems have been escalated because they're in a currency that they shouldn't be in. I mean, this currency in terms of the interest rate and the exchange rate is there to suit the German economy. It's not there to suit the Greek economy. And the idea that the Germans and the Greeks should be in the same currency is utter economic lunacy. Their economies are completely different, and what it says to me is that the euro was never about economics. It was always about politics. It was always a step towards creating a European super state. And I think when Nigel Farage spoke to Angela Merkel a couple of years ago, her response was quite telling when she said that if Greece leaves, others will leave too. And pretty much what she's saying is that they're only trying to keep the Greeks in the euro because they suspect that the Italians, the Portuguese and the Spanish may follow suit. And I think Nigel was quite striking today what he said when he was talking about a new Berlin Wall across Europe, and it isn't one which divides the east and the west. It now divides the north and the south, and you've got the Nordic countries who the euro suits, and you've got the Mediterranean countries who shouldn't be in that currency at all. And what it's doing is it's opening up old wounds. And you heard many a Greek politician today, indeed you heard the Greek Prime Minister talking about war debts and whatnot. I mean, rather than the European Union bringing people together, it's actually dividing the nations of Europe.
You speak about it with some fairly responsible sounding concern, but I must reiterate my earlier question. It strikes me that you'd be happy if Greece left the EU. Frankly, it strikes me you'd be happy if Greece left the EU and everybody else followed suit. That's the case, isn't it?
I think if Greece left the euro, it would be better for Greece and they went back on the drachma and they could set their own exchange rates and set their own interest rates, devalue and get their exports and imports moving. I suspect the Chinese would move in and see Greece as a foothold in Europe, and the Greek economy would boom. And I suspect then that the Portuguese would be next. Contagion could well take hold. The markets or the vultures would then look to another country. I think Portugal will be next, and the Italians would see how well the Greek economy would be doing probably a year down the line and then could move on. Do I believe in a European Union? No. I don't believe in these institutions. I don't think they're good for Europe. But I love Europe. I love a Europe of nations. I love the different languages. I love the different foods, the different cultures, the different wines and beers and all the rest of it. But I don't believe in harmonisation. I think individuality is a part of beauty, and it's one thing that the European Union wants to stamp out.
Finally, Paul, people often speak, yourself included I'm sure, about how European politics are very distant from the average man in the street. What kind of effect would you say the Greek crisis is having on the constituents in your constituency?
Well, the one thing I will say about the British is that we like the underdog, and we don't like to see the smallest boy in the playground being kicked about. And I think what this looks like is that the Greeks and the Greek people being bullied by Brussels, and they don't like it. And I think if Greece does fall out the euro and makes a success of itself, it could be a beacon for other countries to follow. And isn't it great that they've held a referendum and that the Greek people have stood up against, as I said, the bully boys of Brussels? This is the birthplace of democracy, and they are now bringing democracy back to Europe. So good on the Greeks, and I'm right behind you.